relationship affected you and your relationship with Kyle?
Ooh.
I know. That was a big one from last time. That was one of my thoughts. I was like, I think that would be like a really interesting thing, but I don't know if you want to go into that.
Oh, no, I don't mind. I talk about it all the time in the relationship work. It's just, yeah, man, that's a deep one.
Yeah, that's a long one. Then that's a whole podcast.
It really could be like how our parental relationships, play into our romantic relationships.
Yeah, and how it affects you and some of those like things that you saw and happen with your parents, and how it makes you a little more guarded or a little more like, oh, now, since my, parents did this, then okay, let me look out for this in my relationships or something like that. Welcome to the Art House of Gallery Conversations.
Well, let's just be clear. It affected it from the very beginning. And for our visitors and our listeners who don't remember my story, as I've shared on here before, my parents divorced when I was like, this divorce started when I was like in the 6th, 7th, or 8th grade, and it went on until like, I don't know, my sophomore year in college. So they had a very long divorce.
Really?
But yeah.
So you knew that they were having divorce around 6th grade, but then it didn't finish till...
Yeah, like my parents separated when I was in like the 6th grade.
Okay.
And maybe the divorce started when I was like in the 8th grade,
but
it wasn't finalized to my understanding until like I was like my sophomore, freshman year in college, because they were going back and forth about, the house and the money and child support and paying for college and all those things. So it took a while.
Yeah.
But it was so funny because when I started dating Kyle, we went out on our first date or whatever, and we were arguing about something. And I just remember standing on campus. We were by one of the fraternity benches. And I just remember him looking at me, and he stopped me dead in my tracks. And he was like, "I'm not your father and you're not your mother." And I was like, "What?"
Oh, you're like, uh-oh.
Listen, my initial instinct was like, I don't know who you're talking to.
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean? And then he like walked off. So I didn't even have.
Yeah.
I was like,
yeah.
I was, as we would
you
say,
you were flabbergasted. You're like, what?
No, I was tight. Like, I was like, you don't just drop something like that on someone and then just walk away, because I knew I had stuff to say.
Yeah.
But when we eventually had the opportunity to come and sit and talk about it, like I had to listen. Because I realized I was bringing my parents' baggage and divorce.
Yeah.
My relationship, right? And here's the thing, right? It's not always, but sometimes parents, and even you and I as parents, right, we'll parent from our trauma.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? So if we experienced something, we are going to like overcompensate in teaching about that thing with our children. So for example, right, I've shared with you what happened. I may or may not, I don't remember, probably, where my orthodontist, right, like when I would have my braces, he would inappropriately like rub against me. When I was young, I didn't realize that like he was technically like sexually harassing me. But it was kind of weird, and I didn't know what to do. Anyway, when I had my daughter, like off the door, I was like, no, you don't sleep over anybody's house.
Yeah.
I didn't trust anyone. So I was like, no, you don't sleep over friends' houses. We don't do that, because in my mind, it was the trauma of, here is someone, an adult that my mom trusted me to, and they took advantage. Right. And so I parented from that place for a very long time.
Yeah.
So coming back to my mom and my dad with me, I pretty much believe that, and I don't think she did it intentionally. Right. My mom was very much, I'm her only girl. I'm her youngest. Her whole thing was, you're going to get an education. You're going to have a career, and you're not going to depend on any man.
Yes. So she's trying to like, hey, listen, don't do what I did kind of thing. Right.
Oh yeah. And mainly because my mom she came to this country as an immigrant. Right. she got her education here, but my dad got his first.
Yeah.
So my dad got his education first. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. And when my parents got separated, because I'm going to change it from when my father left, when my parents got separated,
Mm-hmm.
my mom had to literally like start her life from almost from the beginning, right?
Yeah.
She went back to school, she finished her degree. I think in her mind, she was like, well, had I done all of those things
Mm-hmm.
before I married this man, I wouldn't have had to go through everything that I'm going through now. But yeah, I think I hadn't really thought about it till Kyle said it. Like I hadn't, I didn't realize that I was functioning, and I love my mom and I've had this conversation with her, so I'm not speaking out of turn.
Yeah.
I was living in my mom's divorce.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
And you're also living her dream of like, listen, don't do what I did. Make sure you are educated, you're okay, you don't, you're not dependent on a man, because when you guys get a divorce, this and that, and yet so she's pushing her dreams onto you.
Oh yeah. But in her mind, her dream was also like her solution that she wished she had.
Yeah, totally.
So it's like, and you can probably admit to this too. Like, I believe, particularly as people of color in this country, our parents have experienced so much that their dreams are not only rooted in what they want for us, but their dreams are also rooted in what they don't want for us.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And everything literally that you had said and experienced, I also went through the same things as well, where my parents were like, okay, no, you can't sleep at anyone's house. But the weird, it's not funny, the dichotomy of that is that, my home life is insane, but then they would also say, no, you can't trust anybody. You can't go sleep in someone's house. You have to get yourself educated. Don't trust any man. You know what I mean? So like, it was such a brainwash of like, okay, don't do these things because you can't trust the world. You can't trust men. And you can't trust, but then like, then you have the nightmare at home. So it was like such a mind madness.
Oh yeah. I think it was rooted in so much. I think it was rooted in fear,
Yeah.
levels of fear and levels of trauma, right? So the fear that what will happen to us will happen to our children.
Yeah.
And so there's this almost like psychological plan of, well, if I can prevent this, if I can stop this from happening for them, this is how I'm going to do that. And that's why I've always like forgiven my parents, because I always say parents do the best they could with what they had. Yeah. Some parents did better than others, but in the in the end, it's like we're left to navigate through their stuff. Our parents spend a lot of time trying to prevent things from happening to us.
Yeah. And especially coming from immigrant families, whatever they went through, as harsh and hard as, my childhood was, I get to points where I wonder what he went through. You know what I mean? Like, there has to be something horrific that he went through that would make him into this type of person.
Into that person.
And since he's still alive, sometimes I randomly wonder if it'll be interesting to ask him those questions.
Oh my God. Oh, that is so interesting.
Yeah. But it wouldn't be like, I don't think it would be anybody else asking him, because he wouldn't answer any of those other questions unless it was me asking them questions.
So when was the last time there was communication of any sort?
Yeah, I haven't talked to him in ages. Haven't seen him in ages. Yeah, like once my mom died, it was easier for us.
That was it.
It was easier for us to be like, all right, well, that was the tie that kept us together.
That kind of kept everyone together.
Yeah, because she was still living in her own lies, of not
So how do you feel like your parents' relationship, their relationship, right? Like in that, but
Mhm.
when you look at your mother and father,
Yeah,
how did their relationship affect you?
it totally, I mean, affected everything because everything that they went through, I would either absorb it
Mm,
in the aspect of I was kind of living my mom's life and her generational trauma.
yeah.
So I didn't realize that until she died. And I was like, you know what? At some point in my life as well, like I started turning in, I started looking like her. I started having like all the stress on my back and gaining weight. And I started
Mm,
looking, you know, so it was like replicating all of it. I felt like I was like, I think I'm living her life,
yeah.
you know, but also like he cheated on my mom as well with multiple women, you know, and I've met some of those women where he's like, oh, this is your aunt. And even as a child, you think that kids don't know, but kids know everything, you know, because
Everything.
kids can absorb everything. Like this
We're
is
paying attention.
yeah. And I was like,
You're not looking at her like she's an aunt.
yeah, not at all. And you can just see the energy that they are either exuding or whatever it is, the dynamic between the two. And you're like, this is not an aunt, you know? And there were multiple women. So I always said to myself, like, one, I can't trust men. One, I
Mhm.
need to be self-sufficient, you know, and just never depend on anybody,
Oh yeah.
you know. But the trust thing is a huge one where I was always like, I can't trust anybody.
Yeah.
So if I'm looking through lens constantly of I can't trust men, they're going to cheat on me, what happens? I attract that kind of
That's right.
energy.
Yeah.
I attract that kind of energy and attract that type of man. And exactly what happens of what I'm fearful of is like hitting the wall. Like we're talking about a race car driver seeing,
Yep.
don't hit the wall, don't hit the wall. That's all I can see is don't trust men because they're going to cheat on you.
It's so funny. I was just about to say it reminds me of our last conversation
Yeah,
where we were talking about what you focus on
yeah.
is what, like, if all you're focusing on is what's right here in front of your face,
Hmm.
that's what the majority of what you're going to see. It's, I just this our conversation is so cool because this week I was training, I was doing team building for a nonprofit organization. So as you know, I do trainings, and I was training their board to just work together and to be in agreement around the vision and to understand personality styles. And one of the things I told him was like, if everyone had on a different color glasses, right? Frame, right? So you have on green and I have on yellow and somebody else has on red, but we're all looking at the same room,
Hmm.
right? The room hasn't changed. We're all in the exact same room. The difference is the color of the lenses in our glasses.
Hmm.
You'll see everything as green. I'll see everything as yellow. Somebody will see everything as red. And so we live our lives from the color of the lens that we're looking in.
Yeah.
And I think, to your point, like we kind of live our lives from, if this is happening right here in front of me, then it's like you keep bouncing and hitting that because that's all you're focusing on.
Yeah. And that's all you see. That's all you see. So um now like one of the things I keep repeating to myself, because I like to always repeat mantras or repeat things that
Yeah.
I need
Mhm.
and to manifest certain things. So like I've always been able to manifest things and goals that I wanted to achieve because they'll be at the forefront of what I'm thinking, like, oh, I need to find a job. I need to do this. I need to do that. So it'll always be something that's prominent in my mind. So usually I'll manifest and reach those goals because that's all I'm thinking about. Right.
Yeah.
But when it comes to men, that's the only thing I'm thinking about. So I've changed that um recently or not too long ago, but I've changed that mentality where I've constantly say this now where I'm like, no, I want a healthy relationship. And that's
Mhm.
what like healthy relationship. I want to be healthy. I want my family to be healthy. And that's like the most important thing from health to family to relationship. I want to have a functional, healthy relationship. So like that's what I keep saying to myself now. So it's no longer like, no, I can't trust them. no, it's also, I need to trust myself. I need to trust my decisions. So I no longer also just put it on like, I don't trust men. No, I trust myself because I'm going to put it on myself to be able to, that comes first. Like it's me that I don't trust. It's me that I felt like wasn't able to protect myself and find safety in as a child and as a teenager. So I've like put those things back on where I try to reword those and
Yeah.
mhm.
It's because we're talking about relationships. I think that's a struggle that a lot of people have, right? And I think it's because the brain experiences the trauma as one, the brain registers the trauma as like, oh, this shit was painful. I don't want it to happen again. That's number one. And then number two, we're constantly trying to figure out how we prevent ourselves from feeling that again.
Yeah.
And so that's where the trust issues come up, right? Because we tell ourselves, oh, well, that person did X, Y, and Z. They looked a certain way. They behaved a certain way. So anytime I see anything that's remotely like that again, oh, then that person is going to be like the last person.
Yep.
And so we connect these dots, but I think what you said is that's the hard work. That's the human work, right? The human work it's not about trusting other people, it's about trusting myself.
Yeah. Yeah. And then when I realized that, I'm like, okay, I'm not going to no longer put it on men and all of this. I'm going to put it on myself, And it was really interesting. I was watching Netflix show. It was called, I think, Resurfacing. And it's about, war veterans and, them going through the PTSD of that and the traumatic brain injuries of going into war, where this surf, guy teach veterans, how to surf. And that literally changed their life and their trajectory and their brain and their pathways of their neurological, pathways as well, because it's the trauma, but it's also the repetition of those traumas. So the longer the timeline of those repetition of that trauma, the longer it's going to take you to recover from it, because those pathways of your nervous system have been embedded for so long.
Oh yeah.
And so it was really interesting because this doctor was like, yeah, like when they go surfing, the dopamine that's released when they go surfing is so high that it starts to replace, the negative things in their minds, and it's creating new pathways for them and helping them, like the new, all the chemicals in your body make its own like pharmacy. Yeah, makes its own pharmacy to make you feel better. And I was like, yeah. So like I was relating everything to like war victims and stuff like that, because my brain has gone through so much of that nervous system of trauma that it instantly goes into self-defensive fighting mode of like, no, like we need to watch out, Linda, watch out, like this is going to happen, Linda, watch out, so it's constantly like on like landmines of walking through life.
Yeah, it's overactive, but overactive in the not the best way.
Yeah.
As opposed to being overactive in the other way.
Yeah.
It's funny because I think that's probably something that our listeners should really consider. And you and I kind of mentioned it briefly a little while ago, just changing up your life every day, right?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
A little bit. And even learn like those veterans learning surfing, the learning process is also what creates the new pathway. Because when you have to learn something new, your brain is actually opening up a portal or a space or occupying pathways that weren't being used before.
Yeah.
So it's the learning that kind of helps us all find our way through some of our childhood traumas.
Yeah. And one of the things that they really pointed out is that using the body as well, because surfing, that you're using your body. So using the body was also the key pivotal point of getting your brain to make those new pathways, because your nervous system is so shot of being in war. You have to get your body involved in it too.
Oh yeah.
That way it gets you out of your head, because like now you're like fully immersed in your body and mind. So you're no longer in your head anymore. You have to use your body and your instincts and all of it. So then it was really, I was like super fascinated.
Resurface.
Mhm.
I'm gonna check it out.
Yeah, it was interesting because
It's
it was because this guy who they focused the movie about,
documentary on.
he
Mhm.
he had traumatic brain injury, and literally like he was, trained to not have emotions, trained to kill, and now he's
Oof.
coming back from war and he has so much of that memory of all the things that he's done. And so he was the last person that got accepted into Operation Surf. And so he was excited. He's like, that's one of my things on my bucket list. So I'm going to go surfing today and then I'm going to come home and kill myself.
What?
Yeah. I'm going to put my things in order. I've ticked off the last thing on my bucket list and I'm going to take the gun and kill myself. But Operation Surfing saved him because it gave him a new purpose in life to help others who are like him now.
That's, to me, those are the I don't know. Those are the things that you hear about in life that you say, well, at least for me, I say there's something divine, God, that's bigger than all of us, right? When I hear stories like that, because it's like, what are the chances? Do you know what I mean? Like just the direct, I don't think
Miracle. Yeah, it's a miracle.
they're not coincidences to me.
It's
They're not. That he was thinking that he had that thought. Do you know what I mean? And was like, and here's this thing that happens for him that totally just changes it for him.
Totally changed the trajectory. I mean, that was literally his plan. That was his plan. He's like, all right, I'm gonna go surfing. This is it. This is my last thing on my bucket list. And I'm gonna get my affairs in order and I'm gonna kill myself. He was happy that he's done the surfing. Now he can die happy. Like not happy, but like
Yeah. Like he could die complete.
Yeah, for him it's complete. Yeah.
It's, you know what, I think about like our conversations talking about our parents, particularly today, trust, and even the story that you just shared. And it's just such a reminder for me that being present to every moment is important, right? We could spend so much time on our future goals, like, oh, what I want to do, I'm going to create these goals. This is where I want to be in 5 years. This is where I want to be in 10 years, and completely miss the value of the present moment.
Yeah, totally.
And how
interconnected we all are.
Right? In the present moment, right? In the present of like here and now, this conversation, someone's going to listen to it and it's going to shift something for them. Do you know what I mean? All because we decided to be present, and present in a way that's like, when I'm arguing or having a disagreement with my husband, I'm mindful. I'm like, okay, Sunrise, is this you? Is this your childhood? Is this like, bring yourself present? Like you're not in the past anymore.
Yeah.
You're right here, right now. I want to check myself to make sure that I'm not, bringing old luggage with me into a present conversation. I always ask my husband, what are we arguing about in this moment? Like, are we arguing about something from the past, but we're using the present moment for the argument? Like, what is happening here and now? And for that story, that's like, I don't know, that was really dope for him to know what he was going to freaking do.
Yeah, he knew it. That was it. That was his plan. But the surfing, here's what his quote was. That was super interesting.
Notable quotables. Is that for the book?
Oh, there's so many. I just write them all down. When he got his first wave, he felt the ocean's heartbeat. And he could feel it. He can feel it like it was a breathing, living thing. And it wasn't death and destruction, and it wasn't trauma and hell. Like it was giving him new life, It was amazing.
I think, Linda, I think so many people in the world, that's all they're looking for.
Yeah.
I think people are looking for the experience of new life.
Yeah, exactly. And one of his other quotes he said is that when he caught that first wave, part of him died. Like the old self that was in that trauma and the war and all of that, part of him died. Like he's going through life hurting so much. He was in so much pain and guilt that guy died out there in that wave that day. So he was able to basically rebirth himself and then change his life. It was amazing. Mm-hmm.
And what might be surfing for one person is art.
Yeah.
For another person is talking. For another person is dancing. For someone else is creating jewelry. For another, that's where our rebirth is. Our rebirth is in those places that we can find our true self, because his true self wasn't necessarily the person that had done all those things.
No, not at all. Not at all. And that's one of the things I've found doing all of my podcasts. Like I've always asked people, like, what do you think the purpose of life is? You know, and now I've come to more of an understanding of it, where I feel like I think a lot of our purpose in life is to be fully authentic and truly ourselves. And that way, whatever we are in that present moment, we are able to gift to others, because we're living in our authenticity, and our authenticity fits into the world better. Because say like you wanted to be an artist, but then you're living as, you know, a mechanic, like, you know, like you're not doing your purpose and you're not living it for, you know, purposefully and doing the best you can and living, you know, all of it. You're technically taking someone else's job who loves to be a mechanic and loves cars and loves building, you know, so you're taking someone else's purpose. So if you just got in your own purpose, the world will just all be more of a better place.
It's funny because it's funny you gave that analogy. I use that analogy in trainings. I tell people like, yeah, I do. I said there's some people, particularly like when I'm doing education trainings, I say, you know, it's okay if you didn't want to be an educator, right? Because the reality is, there's an educator that really wants to be a baker, and they're just a horrible teacher. Yeah, they're a horrible teacher, but they would be an amazing baker. And there's someone out there who's baking somewhere in a bakery, and they want to be an educator. And they're a horrible baker, but somebody told them that you need to be a baker, you need to be here, this is what you need to do. And so you, to your point, you're like, you're occupying somebody's space.
Yeah, you're taking someone's space where they would be great at it and would love it, and now you're taking their job, technically.
Oh yeah. When the acknowledgement of this isn't my true authentic self. That's what that is what Kyle did for me on the outside when we were on campus.
Wow.
And he said, you're not your father. He said, I'm not your father and you're not your mother. Wow. He allowed me the opportunity to find my authentic self.
So he was shining like a mirror to you of like,
like if we're going to be together, we can't be together in the characters that you've created.
Wow.
His whole thing is, I'm not your father.
And we're living in those shadows.
But you have cast me in this play in your mind as your dad, and I'm not your father.
And were you able to fully see that and see him as Kyle and not with all of the extra baggage?
I over time, definitely. But that initial statement, it changed my life, because it caused me to really spend time being extremely reflective of, you know, this was my mom's experience and it was hers. She lived it. And I don't think she was intentionally telling me how to live my life. She was really trying to protect me as a mother. But I got to figure out, like, your story is your story. It doesn't have to be my story. And I don't have to narrate it the way you're narrating it for me.
That's such a huge, like, weight off of your shoulders.
Oh yeah. Because then I could really decide what type of woman I wanted to be. Right. Yes, I wanted a career. Yes, I wanted to go get my degrees, but I wanted to do those things because I wanted to do them, not because I felt like I had to have a career just in case if I married someone, they decided to leave me, I would have a career.
Yeah.
Like that's two completely different conversations.
Yeah, and it's completely two different lenses to live your life through, because if you live your life through those lenses, you would have so much weight and like a chip on your shoulder technically of you're like, all right, here's, here's the wall that I'm trying not to hit.
That I'm trying not to hit, but every time I spin around, I'm like,
yeah,
I'm bumping into that wall.
So when you and Kyle have like fights and you ask yourself, is this fight something from the past? And sometimes do you actually see that it is something from the past? And how do you maneuver that if it is a fight about not what it is at the moment?
We're coming up on 20 years of marriage in December. We've been together 27. So we don't hold any bars anymore. So when we have those epiphanies in our disagreements, we just shoot straight. We shoot straight, right? It's like, we don't get offended by those questions with each other anymore. I think in early years, it took time. You had to kind of like massage it and practice it. But now, we do. We ask those questions and then we're able to immediately, for the most part, in the moment, be able to say, my bad, that was all me. That's our, like one of our sayings, right? We acknowledge clearly that my bad, that was all me. I was frustrated about this, that, and the other. Clearly I brought something into this conversation that wasn't about you. Oh yeah, we do that rather quickly. And we have this joke. We say both of us can't be crazy at the same time because we have kids.
Yeah.
So,
I like that.
it's kind of like both of us can't black out at the same time. We have two human beings responsible for us. So if our disagreements are kind of like going there where like we can't resolve, one of us will be like, okay, whose turn is it this time? Right? Is it your turn? Because we both can't black out at the same time. The kids need us. Like,
well, because it also brings light of it and makes a joke of it. So then technically you will snap out of it because you're like, okay, let's not act crazy. Let's, one person at a time. So you're like, you make a joke and it becomes less serious of whatever the issue is at hand.
Oh yeah. That's but that had from when he told, I must have been 18 or 19 when he made that comment to me about, I'm not your father, you're not your mother. So from there to now, and even now we always look back on that day and we laugh because his whole thing was that was a deal breaker for him.
Oh.
Like, had I not gotten it
and changed and started being
and not even necessarily changed, had I not acknowledged the point that he was making, like even from the point of acknowledgement. He was like, I wasn't about to dance down that road with you. He's like, I liked you a lot and I thought you were the one. He's like, but I wasn't about to go down that road.
Wow.
So we laugh about that night. That was a funny night. It was though. Like I was really offended. I was like, what? But he was right.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing that you saw and really reflected on what he said, because that did everything, right?
It did. But it's like we've been saying in this conversation, it's the trust part, right? I had to.
Did you have trust issues?
Kind of, sort of. Yeah, I guess I had trust issues. Yeah. I had trust issues around not what other people might have trust issues around, like cheating and stuff like that. I had trust issues around how people treated me.
Okay.
Because that was the dynamic in my parents' relationship, right?
Yeah.
It was like, you're not going to treat me any kind of way because I can go. You're not going to treat me any kind of way because I can take care of myself. You're not going to treat me any kind of way because I don't need what you're offering. You know what I mean? So that was the trust issue. My trust was around if you look like you weren't going to be treating me right. And that was friends too.
Yeah.
That was
everybody. But I think that's everybody in the world too, of like, society as well. And growing up, you're always looking at like, how are people treating?
But that's where for me personally, faith comes in, because now, to your point, I trust myself because I feel like I'm connected to something
Higher.
higher.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, my trust comes from the trust that I have in God, like that if my gut tells me something,
yeah,
oh, I'm listening. Oh, like I'm not even sticking around to try to figure out like, oh, well, why?
yeah.
I'm like, oh, nope. What?
Yeah.
Don't, oh, go the right way on the expressway. Got it. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's something that I'm tuning into more now, to trust.
I remember you said that. Yeah.
Yeah. And it, to me, like, I mean, like, I'm excited for the day. I'm excited for the day where everything starts to line up more and I trust my gut more. And then I'm more at peace with things instead of like suppressing those gut feelings and wondering like, oh, am I right? Am I crazy, or am I being like too jealous? Am I being too whatever? You know, like, because you second guess it and you're like, oh, am I being too, whatever it is that you're trying to find. But really, your gut really is usually always right.
Yes.
It usually always right. And my friend was trying to tell me, she's like, listen to that, because like I'll have anxiety, right? And she's like, you should start listening to that instead of just ignoring it and pushing it down. Because I've had so many different types of feelings in my life, but I've always suppressed them.
Yeah.
So now I need to sit with them more and practice trusting them.
Yeah. And the only way, I tell people this all the time, when I'm coaching women, the only way that happens is you just got to do it. Right? It's like trusting like at the very, very small granular level.
Yeah.
Right. When people, I have a lot of people tell me, a lot of my clients, they'll say, oh, I can't seem to go to sleep. I wake up really early in the morning and I can't go back to sleep. And I try to tell them, I'm like, yeah, but maybe you should get up. Like, I know you're tired, but sometimes you may want to get up because you don't know what's waking you up and why. Right. And I tell a lot of people, keep like a notebook by your bed. So if you can't go to sleep, right, wake up and then just start jotting things down. Because there's so much communication that happens outside of our five senses.
Yes.
We are so dependent on touch, hear, see, feel, taste, and smell.
Yeah.
That, what your friend was telling you about your gut, that is a sense.
Yeah.
Right? You say gut, someone says intuition. I say Holy Spirit. Like someone else says God.
All the same. It's all the
is
same. You just whatever you want to call it.
It's all the same thing. But what it represents is there's another sense that we have.
Yeah.
That can pick up on things. But most of us are told to be logical.
Yeah.
Right? If you went through your house, I'll use this example. If you went through your house and you smelled gas, right? You're going to be like, that doesn't smell right.
Yeah.
I think there's gas, right? So one of two things, you're going to go to the stove, you're going to see if the stove is on, or if it's really strong, you're going to leave your house and call your, we have PSCNG, call whoever to say, hey, there's gas. Why don't we do the same thing when we walk into a room or we're talking to someone?
Yeah, when something doesn't feel right.
And something doesn't
feel right. And then something's weird, but then you just ignore it.
But you ignore it or you explain it away.
Yeah, explaining away. Yeah, that's the thing that women do a lot.
Tired. It must be this. It must be
PMSing. I'm just being emotional.
As opposed to, let me sit with that. And now I'm not going to be guarded, but I'm going to be mindful. Like I'm not going to completely dismiss that, but I'm just going to kind of be more alert about that thing. And if you pay attention long enough, you'll probably a friend will probably be like, yeah, that person's really weird, or, and then you're like, oh, that must've been what it was.
And she just felt something was off on this train. She's like, I don't know why, but I got on this train and just something felt really off. And I think something happened like afterwards. I think either a guy pulled a gun or someone got, oh no, I think someone robbed someone. I think someone grabbed someone's purse. but she just entered the train and something felt off. Like she felt some sort of energy.
Yes.
She was like, what is this? She was getting like chills or something. And then someone just grabbed someone's purse and just ran out. So
Yeah.
energy is like real.
Well, even if we go back to the conversation about our parents, right? Our parents' energy that they housed in their marriages and their relationships is transferable.
It totally is. And it's transferable also, you know, when you're having a baby, like when you're holding that baby and the fears that you might have, you know, transferable to your kids.
Yeah. It's absolutely like, I don't know, probably one of the most transformative things in my life that helps me to stay grounded every day. But that sense or that awareness that there's more to this, you know, hate to say it like that, but there's more to this than meets the eye, right? You know how
Yeah,
people say
totally.
that?
I mean, totally. You felt that even as a kid. You had those like inklings or hearing the voices of people.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Yes. So it, you know, that's why it's so even more powerful when Kyle said, I'm not your father and you're not your mother, because I was so alert because of that. It almost like that's why I said it allowed me to truly be my authentic self, because I could have kept going down that road.
Yeah.
And be like, oh, you're wrong. You don't know what you're talking about. And then been bouncing around in relationship to relationship to relationship, wondering like what's going on.
Yeah.
But he created a space through confrontation that allowed me to find my authentic self.
Yeah, I love it. So I appreciate you opening up today and chatting with me, because we always have our beautiful, you know,
we do
inspiring conversations. So thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.
Yes.
Bye.